Welcome to the Remington Podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mays, and today I'm sitting down with Head of Research and Development, John Langenfeld.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And the Ballistics Engineer, Jimmy Lawrence.
Hello.
We are here to discuss, talk about, derail the argument of, do you want a big old bullet or do you want a really fast one, right? John, what is your opinion?
Well,
I know that you don't like to talk about opinions, but what is your opinion?
you're talking about something that's an age-old conversation.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, it's a campfire conversation of what do you want? Two schools of thought. And when you first talked about doing a podcast like this, my first thought, goes back to the O'Connor and Keith, call it a conflict, controversy, whatever, that fueled a lot of magazines for a lot of years around high velocity, lighter projectile versus heavy caliber, slower, and which one's more effective for what you're doing. And so, I don't like to choose, so I do both. I shoot big bullets very fast.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Okay.
But, a lot of people don't want that kind of recoil.
Yeah.
So I think there's places and applications for both because you can get a lot of differences in penetration depth versus bullets that don't penetrate very deep, but they transfer energy very quickly. So, you're really going to have to get into what am I using? I'm going to use a different kind of platform and cartridge and bullet for shooting coyotes than I am Cape Buffalo.
Right.
One's really fast and light and one's very heavy. So if you consolidate that down, just talk about, say, an elk cartridge or a deer cartridge, then you're going to have some overlap and saying, well, do I want to shoot a 270? Maybe a 7 millimeter? Or do I want to get up into 35 Wayland, 338s, things of that nature? So,
which can all do the job. So I guess the question after that is,
what kind of job do you like?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think is effective? And most people will get that feedback from harvesting game, and they're going to have confidence in what happens.
Right.
You have somebody that has a bad experience or a bullet fails with just any cartridge, and they're not, they can say, "Oh, I'm never shooting that again." Fill in the blank. I've heard it. I've seen it. So, like I said, I am probably not necessarily in a school of thought of one or the other, but more so, what application am I using this in? Yeah. And what's going to get me the best result?
So basically, you think end use first.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't have a general theory because they're very different. High velocity, you can see that if you go out and you shoot a gelatin block, you can see how much that block shakes and jumps off the table and chunks fly around, especially on the high-speed video when you hit it with something fast. That's the energy transfer. Now, your penetration depth, depending on the bullet type, is going to differ. But when you shoot one with a slower projectile, bigger, heavier, you don't see that violent disruption of material, but what you will see is, usually a lot more penetration.
48 inches of jello sometimes,
Yeah. But you've got a bigger bullet, and, there have been tests that I've seen where people have shot, I think it's like sacks of grain.
Or buckets of sand.
And you shoot one with something high velocity, say a 223, and you don't really know that it got shot with it. But you shoot one with, say, a 44 Magnum, and you can, it'll soak that up and it wants to move. And so that's where the kind of the two schools of thought come from. But like I said, you're not going to answer the question. It's just going to really depend on what do you like.
Yeah.
And so I like both. My ideal elk rifle is that Wildcat that I'm going to use this fall, the 33 GNA. I'm going to launch 210 grain bullets at over 3,100 feet per second. So that's the velocity of the high velocity magnums, your 300s, your 270s, things like that. But I've got the bullet weight of a 338.
So you're like, I don't have to choose.
I don't have to choose. I'm just going to do it all.
The answer, Wildcat. That's your answer.
Well, we had mentioned back when we were talking about the 223 specifically.
Yeah.
When America got into varminting and the cartridges started getting more and more popular, the velocity portion of the energy and terminal energy can be replacing the mass of the bullet pretty effectively if a certain number of things are there as available options, which is a good, clean, straight-on hit with nothing in the way, no bones or brisket plates or any of those things from hogs or deer, no armor, no thick wool clothing, stuff like that. Going in the other direction from a traditional rifle cartridge like a 30-06, you can go even slower and heavier. And a lot of people use the term thumper, like a slower 45-70 405 grain. A lot of people use those in a use case where it's not going to be out past 75 or 100 yards, but there might be some grass or limbs between you and your known good shot. So you'll hear the term brush gun and things like that for the heavier, slower. And I think the biggest part of this conversation is the difference between energy and then what we call momentum, which a lot of people don't really think about that. It's just mass times velocity. So you increase your mass, you get a lot more momentum. You won't get as much energy, though. So the splash in the jello is we're talking about the shock of 3,000 feet a second and expanding soft pointer, whichever it is, versus a 405 grain soft point from a 45-70 at, call it 13 or 1,400 feet a second. It's going to hit like a dump truck and keep on going, keep pushing, break through a shoulder and then just keep pushing, and it'll mush and move a lot of mass for a longer amount of time. And so the use case is important, but where are you hunting?
Yeah.
Arkansas, we don't need a 7 mag because you don't have 300-400 yard shots.
Sure. I mean, unless you're hunting in like really heavy brush, like you said, you need to break through that kind
Or
of
you
stuff.
just want to use a 7 mag.
Or you just want to use a 7 mag.
Yeah,
Just
we know a
use
lot of
7
guys that
mag.
are just all day long
Yeah.
shooting deer at 75 yards with 7 mags because they don't want to chase them.
Yeah, I mean, like, John, I know you have like a really wide array of guns, but you also travel a lot to hunt, I would say. Like, I would say more than your average person.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I travel enough. But all right, then don't tell my wife.
Yeah. So, like you said, end use first. Do you say you're going to hunt in Arkansas or Illinois? Well, Illinois is a shotgun-only state, maybe.
Well, they can use rifles now. Come on.
Okay, sorry. We already talked about that. They can use rifles now.
Straight wall.
But,
Single shot.
are you basing what you're reaching for based off of where you're going?
Yeah. That's why I've got so many different rifles, because
Yeah.
I'm not a one use. To me, that's boring.
Yeah.
I like rifles and ammo and bullets. And so half the fun for me is trying to figure out what rifle I'm going to use, what cartridge it's going to be chambered to, what bullet I'm going to shoot, what scope's on the rifle. The preparation part of it I enjoy, from a firearm side. And because I get enjoyment out of using that on the hunt. And so if I had to take one gun, yeah, I've got that all purpose. But then I've also got the stuff that I think are ideal: antelope deer, elk, dangerous game, synthetic, wood,
Yeah.
You ever take two? Do you have your 50-yard rifle and your 200-yard rifle?
No. Usually if I when I say no, I meant no to the difference in
Performance.
We need a golf bag.
exactly the difference in performance.
Golf bag for guns.
Usually I always take two, especially when I travel, just for the unforeseen reason that something would happen. I want to,
Of course.
I like to use my own stuff, but they'll usually be something similar in performance, but maybe different application. So like last year when I went elk hunting, I had a really nice woodstock rifle and a synthetic rifle, both adequate to harvest elk at the same distances, just weather dependent. And I hunted the wood gun because we had really nice weather.
So question, if you went to Alaska and you were on a deer hunt, but you also had a grizzly tag, would you take two guns?
Well, it depends on, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would take two I'd have one as a spare.
Okay, but you wouldn't take two because they're two different caliber. Like
We've
perform
established he
differently.
carries a backup.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've harvested deer in Arkansas with a 375 Holland and Holland.
Because you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need to shoot that gun.
So would I do that? It would depend on how the hunting goes. So if I'm hunting in an area where I'm deer hunting, but the chances of either needed defending myself with a rifle from bear, or it's highly likely that the opportunity to kill a bear is high, then I'm probably going to be carrying a rifle that is overkill for the deer and adequate for bear, not the other way around.
Gotcha.
But I probably wouldn't take two and say, well, I'm going to use this one on the deer and this one on the bear, unless they're kind of two separate hunts. Then I might. Yeah.
Yeah, a good analogy would be South Arkansas ground blind, but there's feral hogs in the area.
Right.
So I want to shoot a whitetail. It's pretty close in. Probably 44 mag would be adequate. 45-70 would be maybe overkill. But there is a chance that there's going to be a pack of swine come rooting through, and you would have to shoot one or multiple of them, either in defense or because you want some bacon. But it could come down to that same choice of cartridge selection.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking in a use like that, like something 450 Bushmaster or 44 Rim Mag would be on the light side. I really like my short 4570 with 405 low pressure. Our old legacy load, it's pretty soft to shoot, but it's carrying a lot of momentum, and it would do both jobs really well.
But then you have people shooting hogs with a 223 and AR.
That's that other school of thought.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's
100%.
all bullet construction.
That's what
you have to have a good bullet
Yeah.
for that to work.
That was my next question. So how much, maybe in your opinion, maybe you know some science behind it, how much is it in the bullet engineering, in the shape, in the,
Big piece.
Okay.
Yeah, big
Even
piece.
for a 243.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, even bigger. I mean, you can get up into quick story. My very first big game hunt was an antelope hunt. Used a 300 Weatherby Magnum. That was at the time my first big game rifle, and I got that one because I felt like it would cover the full spectrum. If I never had any more rifles, I could hunt the world non-dangerous game with this 300 Weatherby.
Yeah.
And very adequate for an antelope rifle. The bullet that I used was conventional cup and core. I took the shot at an extreme angle, almost virtually going away. And as the antelope got up, he took off, and then he started going straight away from me, and my guide said, shoot him. I'm shooting a big enough gun. Shouldn't be an issue.
Sure.
Antelope drops on the spot. As we get up there, the bullet didn't reach the vitals, and it crippled his back end. So I put a finisher in him. The hunt was over. So it was successful. But at that point is when I started to realize if I would have had a tougher constructed bullet, I could have got to the vitals.
Or more mass.
Or more
Or
mass. Yeah.
I needed to take a shot with that kind of bullet, more broadside,
Yeah.
because the penetration of that projectile couldn't withstand the velocity going through that bone to get to that depth. So 100%, the bullet construction is very important on shooting anything. If you're going to shoot small cal 223 and shoot hogs and shoot deer, shoot tough constructed bullets. The penetration is going to be different. Your weight retention is going to be different. You're not going to use a prairie dog type bullet that's going to have massive disruption, go through a water bottle and its fragments on the other side.
Right. Because it won't penetrate deep enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to have a line called Hog Hammer. It was the copper solid. Really good for punch the brisket, still expand, and then do some job. And that's the type of construction, or a bonded bullet. For if you want lightweight, high velocity, that's about the only way to put deep tissue damage on an animal like that.
Like those Swift
Yeah.
bullets.
Usually in the big stuff, most of those bullets are not at a velocity level that you have to have extreme tough construction to hold together. Right. And they all kind of perform about the same. They're a little different, but you're usually not going to a Whalen or a 338 Win Mag. Usually that whole spectrum, you can pretty much just go get one and use it for whatever application it is. But it's when you start to push the velocity envelope higher and higher, now you're asking more of that bullet.
Yeah.
That you can have extreme ends of penetration, weight retention loss versus heavy controlled expansion, deep penetration.
Yeah. I've heard people, argue, well, if the bullet's going faster, it's not going to open up. And I'm like, I don't think that's true.
No.
Yeah.
The faster that the bullet hits, the more disruption you're going to have if it's working correctly.
More
like
energy
it's
to
supposed
control.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing to consider is if you're focused on mass instead of velocity. Even if you look at like a 300 grain hollow point on the 4570, it's 1900 feet a second on our load. And if you mush pretty quick with the hollow point and you even lose some of that material, the shank that's still passing through that wound cavity is 2 or 3 times the mass of a 270 130, right? You're still carrying a lot of mass deep in that wound cavity. And that's something with a 55 to 150 grain bullet, you've got to retain so much of that mass and not lose any material on the way into the shot that you have to have something like a bonded or a monolithic bullet for that thing to be effective beyond its use case.
Yeah.
And they say there's no replacement for displacement. That's kind of my opinion on the thing. Just throw more lead and it solves more problems.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like you lean more towards the bigger bullet.
I'm an Arkansas guy. I'm not shooting in Kansas.
Yeah. Doesn't need to go very far. Just needs to hit really hard.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned, Jimmy, something called like the Thumper Concept before. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Recently, it's more of a colloquial term. I think people put together builds on the internet and they like to lump them into categories. And one of those that's been around for some time is the Thumper. So you're talking about not necessarily a high velocity big bore, like what we would call an elephant gun colloquially, right?
Yeah.
But something more of a North American heavy, like I mentioned earlier, 44 mag, 450 Bushmaster, 4570. There may be some 338 diameter things that would fall in that area, but those are like the big three that come to my mind when we say Thumper. And I know in the past there have been some more specific things. I think we even mentioned Colonel Cooper had a specific use case that he was interested in, and he had called it the Thumper Concept.
Yeah, he's the one who coined that term.
Yeah, and it's been used so many other ways in time since then that we've kind of forgotten about that because, you know, he had also come up with the idea of the scout rifle and had very specific envelope of use and design that this rifle had to meet to be his perfect scout rifle, and people still argue about that today. You know, you have to have a long eye relief, forward mounted scope, you know, this barrel length, detachable magazines, all these other things. Well, he had the same sort of thought. I think it was in one of his books about the Thumper Concept. Something between a personal defense weapon and a submachine gun, but was using one of these heavier, bigger bore, little longer effective range. So I think his was 44 auto mag.
Gotcha. I've never heard of a 44 auto mag. To be honest with you, what exactly is that?
There's a pistol company. Was it Automag? Who made the original series of pistols? Arcadia Machine Tool, maybe.
Okay.
They had come up with a 44 Magnum cartridge, but it was like a rimless pistol, and it was designed to feed and function in a semi-automatic handgun. So they had the Automag 2 through like the Automag 5, and they were all different sizes from like 22 Magnum up to 44. And it was a one-off cartridge that they had come up with. And some European company had made a PDW style short carbine chambered in that cartridge, and magazine went in the handle in the grip.
Sure.
Real short, telescope in stock, fold in stock, whichever they wanted to set it up with, and that's the one he had seen, and decided that concept could be brought in with maybe 44 Magnum, something of that similar size, and probably the closest that ever got actually made was the Rigger Camp 44, I think it was. Just imagine like a 1022 that shoots 44 Magnum.
Yeah, I know something.
Little rotary box magazine or little rotary magazine, just like a 1022.
Yeah.
And those aren't around anymore, but it's that short, handy, semi-automatic Thumper.
Yeah, that sounds insane because the 1022 is like my favorite gun that I own. And imagining that with a big 44 in it, it's a little crazy.
Well, it'd be like an upscaled 30 carbine.
Which I've never shot before, so sounds good. John. So, I mean, John says that he's pretty indifferent. He doesn't choose. He just gets really big bullets to go really fast.
Show him the data.
Yeah. You say that you're a bigger bullet guy.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like he's picking, 4570s and, things of that nature.
Yeah, I've got 2 308s, and they're both gas guns because I just like shooting that style of rifle. But my lever actions, my brake actions, they're all, I guess you would call them all Thumpers. I've got a 16-inch 4570. I've got a 357 carbine lever action. And of course, once you start talking about putting a suppressor or a can on it, then all of a sudden there's some more fun to be had.
Yeah.
A lot of these cartridges we're talking about do lend themselves towards heavy enough to be subsonic and still effective.
Yeah.
So you could download a 4570, or you could, potentially work up some loads in 450 Bushmaster that would shoot out of a can and be all of a sudden thump weight whack.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, the most fun shooting there is.
I have a 4570 Marlin, and I want to put a can on it because I mean it like destroys me, and suppressors take a little bit of the kick out of it.
Ammo selection helps too.
Well, for sure, but that's always the kicker, isn't it? Pun intended.
Yeah. So
No one laughed at your joke.
I know, I was sad. It's okay.
it was a good joke.
Thank you.
My mind was already on to the next thing I was going to say. So listen to the cartridges that he talked about in the platforms and the lever guns and things like that. I would say that the category that I would fall into would be the opposite. It would be the velocity spectrum, because most of the stuff I'm using is the bolt guns, scoped, longer range.
Yeah.
So the velocity category, even though you get up into bigger calibers with heavy bullets, they're still fairly quick for what they are. Like my Buffalo guns are 450 Dakota. So you're launching, 450 grain bullets over 2,400 feet per second, relative to kind of the normal 45 cal Buffalo gun. Call it, like a 458 Win Mag. So it's on the high speed side. 270s, 300 Magnums, fast 338s. So even though not everything is always a big heavy bullet at high speed, I would say that the stuff that I'm using primarily is in that higher speed category within its caliber.
Would you say, though, that like the technology that we're coming into kind of gets rid of this conversation because we can now...
it makes it worse.
You think so?
Harder to come to agreement on, because now we're talking about ballistic coefficient.
Yeah.
And you don't need as much velocity to push as far because you're not shedding your velocity as bad.
Okay.
So now you've got an entire third school of thought coming in with the PRCs and the Creedmoor chamberings.
BC, backcountry.
Yeah. 7mm backcountry is the same concept. A long, sleek bullet that just holds on to the velocity that you started off with, and now shorter barrels and things like that.
It's still like a pretty big grain.
Which, unfortunately for me, I guess I'm an old soul. The technology to make me happy is 155 years old. I mean, the Black Powder 4570 checks all my boxes.
Yeah.
Well, aside from cleaning guns, I don't do that. All the things John's talking about really have been innovated in the last, 80 years, gotten better. Every 10 years, something better. And like John mentioned, backcountry's just last year, a next step in options for what do you want to shoot? How far away do you want to shoot it? Where's your confidence on shooting?
And we've talked a little bit about that in the podcast around dialing scopes versus point blank range and just faster and faster to flatten trajectory.
Yeah, it shoots flat.
Right.
Exactly. And so now what you can do is, if you look at the data, you can start a projectile slower. You've got a higher ballistic coefficient. You don't lose that velocity as quickly. So you can still have a similar energy on target with, call it, lesser of a cartridge. So you're kind of more ballistically efficient, so to speak.
Lighter rifle, lighter ammo, less powder, less recoil. Those are the new
That's what everyone's going
trends, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't think you're ever going to convert anybody. They're going to have their opinions, and they're going to, by God, that's what works. This is what I've killed 100 deer with this, and they flop dead right there, and the next guy beside them will say, no, this is what I use, and they won't buy it.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you want to pull data, what do you need? What do you need anything better than a 30-30 in North America to shoot a whitetail deer with? I mean, if you look at the sheer number of dead deer out there.
Yeah.
So that's where we get into the interest of what makes you happy to shoot, like John mentioned earlier. What actually tickles your fancy on top of just taking a tool out to harvest an animal with.
Yep.
Yeah, like what's actually enjoyable for you.
Yeah. Our FFL friend
Yeah.
has, I think it's a relative that he likes to joke with me when I go over there, and he asked me if I'm ever going to fix a 270 because they go the wrong velocity, that they won't kill stuff.
I'm sorry, what?
That's what I said. I said, what? Yeah. So if he listens to this, he'll get a kick out of that. 270s don't go the right velocity.
Yeah.
And you won't tell this guy any different.
That's all I've ever shot my whole life.
You didn't know it was going the wrong speed?
I didn't know. It's crazy. The deer seem to be okay with it.
Well, and it is a funny thing to look at, a little pocket of preference that doesn't get a lot of attention, because we've been told as engineers here and from marketing like yourself, velocity sells. Any extra 10, 20, 30, 40 feet per second you can put on your box makes that thing look like a better product. And that's been the arms race for the last 80 years between all of the manufacturers. Rifles, ammo, squeeze more energy out the muzzle. And then all of a sudden you wind up with a Remington Ultra Mag. And
Oh, yeah.
there's guys here in Arkansas shooting ultra mags. You're like, man, what are you working on over there?
Yeah,
They just think
I've
it's
done it.
fun. Yeah.
Why not?
They just think it's fun. Yeah. I mean, you can't take the enjoyment out of pulling the trigger. And so if that's getting rocked by your rifle, and that's what you enjoy, Jimmy, then that's what you enjoy.
I don't really shoot our high pressure stuff enjoyably. But there is something fun about thinking back to the plains and shooting a buffalo at 800 yards with iron sights, an octagonal barrel.
Yeah.
Kind of in the heydays of Remington guns and
Sharpshooters.
the very first cartridge ammunition, and exactly that, sharpshooters, as cartridge firing firearms became, several different use cases got all better. The carbines on horseback, and then yes, the long rifles out in the prairie. There's technology there where you're holding over so far, but you're still hitting target. And to me, that's very intriguing. And I enjoy the thought of actually shooting something like that one day.
Yeah. I think that's cool too. If you can do the math and actually make it happen like that. I mean, because that's what you're doing, sitting out there doing the math, making sure that your drop hits where you want it to drop.
I don't think they had solvers. They were just using range
You
time.
think they were just like,
Splash of dirt? Yeah, I have a buddy up there with a flag,
Yeah.
maybe.
you think that's what they were doing? Probably. I mean, I guess you can't measure that. Back then you couldn't measure that stuff.
A lot of theory on paper, but usually you'd shoot and see where the hole was.
Math.
I use technology.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Shocker. The engineer.
I shoot and see where the hole is.
As long as you know where you're shooting, I mean, like, debate's in the air.
So we've had this conversation. This went in circles.
Sorry.
How do we help consumers? How do we wrap this up? How do you help?
I feel like we come back to this every time, and it's always, what are you using it for? I really do.
You probably need to buy another gun and the ammo to go with it.
And you probably should buy another gun.
You can test it. Yeah. Sure.
You should. I mean, that's my opinion. What are you using it for? Check the data, figure out how your bullet reacts on target.
Bullet construction.
Yep.
What's the application? Yeah.
Booyah. Make sure you're sighted in.
Well, and that brings up a good point. We do get a lot of people asking us, whether it's out and about on a show or over the phone.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got this drop chart from your website. It stops at 200 yards. I need to know 300 and 400 yards. And whenever I get those phone calls, I always tell them the same thing. Take your rifle out, find the longest comfortable shot that you would want to try to harvest an animal with, and shoot it yourself with your ammo and your rifle. And it's the same thing with a new gun. If you have someone whose gun is nearing the end of its life expectancy, or they're having a hard time finding ammunition, they want to find something different, I tell them, get a buddy that has a few guns, go shoot theirs, go try different things. Don't sit and, get a bunch of internet opinions like us, but go out and shoot.
You can trust me.
Go out and shoot and try it and see what you think about it.
Yeah. I always think that, putting your hands on it is probably the best way to figure things out anyways. And there are ballistics apps out there. If you're like, hey, I need to know what this is like.
They've gotten
at 300 or
really
400.
good in the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another resource for you guys. Anything else to add on the Thumper concept?
Nothing's coming to
John?
mind.
No. Okay. Well, we've said our piece. Well, there you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting or shooting buddies. If you have any questions for me or John or Jimmy here, you can email us at podcast@remington.com. Thanks for listening.